Hello, and welcome to this thINK Forum webinar. thINK is an independent community of Canon Solutions America production print customers, solution partners, and print industry experts. Led by some of the most successful inkjet service providers in the country, it provides a forum for members to network, gain knowledge, discuss common challenges, and share best practices. This is a listen-only webinar. However, we encourage you to submit questions through the GoToWebinar control panel by chatting them to the moderator today, who is Barb Pello, Group Director at InfoTrends, and she will answer them as they come in or at the end of the presentation. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on thinkforum.com in just a few days. Now, for today's webinar, I would like to turn it over to our moderator, Barb Pello. Welcome to the webinar, Barb.
Well, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. And what we're going to be doing today is talking about a concept that isn't new. It's the concept of vertical marketing. And basically, what we're seeing is that many businesses understand what it is, but they don't know how to implement it. The focus today will be implementation. Now, when pursuing a vertical market, you also need to be ready to invest your time and the effort required to develop strategies and align your resources to that market's needs, educate and train your staff, and allocate the right resources. Today I'm joined by two folks that are actually experts relative to making this happen. The first is Larry Bauer, and Larry is the Chief Strategy Officer at Baycom. And basically, his company serves the high security document and retail sector. And he's been with Baycom for 6 years. Prior to that, he spent 22 years heading a Chicago-based marketing and sales consultancy. I'm also joined by Chris Kropak. And Chris is widely recognized as a technology innovator and a rigorous advocate of high standards. And Chris works at PCI. They specialize in highly regulated, compliant critical communications with an emphasis on healthcare, financial, and cable industry. Now, what we'll be talking about today is, first of all, why you should target market. And then from both Larry and Chris, you'll hear about how they've made that work for their organization, and then a quick summary. Now, first and foremost, why is target marketing important? Well, what you've got to think about is that you can't be all things to all people. You can't serve all of the customers in the universe. There's not a company out there that has that level of resource. First and foremost, the customer segments are too numerous, but the other thing is their buying requirements are incredibly diverse. And so what we're finding is the most savvy print service providers are segmenting markets into those that they can serve most effectively. Now, what we're seeing is in this heterogeneous universe, what they've done is they've divided that into market segments where buying requirements are the same. And then the successful providers aren't trying to attack every market segment, but rather just a few market segments. And so what we're seeing is, first and foremost, that segmentation, targeting within those segments, and then repositioning that firm to appeal to those segments. And so when you think about it, what you've done is you've profiled distinct groups of buyers who have differences in needs and preferences, and that's really segmenting the marketplace. Then what you do is you select one, or in some instances more segments to enter. That's target. And then for each target segment, what you want to do is establish and communicate the distinct benefits of your company's market offering, and that's positioning. Now, when you think about it, there's some substantial benefits to you as a service provider. First of all, it gives you the opportunity to get more attention within your space. You become viewed as an expert in that segment. If I'm in the financial services segment, what you'll find out is there's a good network out there, and others will say, hey, this is who I use to help me with this specific project. So you build up that core expertise, and you become recognized as an expert. what you'll find is it's easier to market, and you'll know which customers you want within that specific market segment, and it's easy to then develop and build out that prospect list. Because your salespeople are focused, they become much, much more productive, and they develop a unique form of what I categorize as business acumen. And what that means is that what I've got the ability to do is truly understand my customer business issues, communicate effectively to that segment, and be understood and viewed as that partner that really knows their needs and understands them. Now with that, what I'm going to do is I am going to turn it over to Larry from thINK, and Larry's going to talk to you about how they've made that work for their business. Larry?
Thanks, Barb. It's really nice to be here and to have an opportunity to share with some of my industry colleagues. Going right into a little overview of what Baycomp does, we've been around, as you can see, for several decades. And over that time, we've really evolved into two divisions. The first is high security documents, which does everything from statements and collection letters to legal forms and tax forms. The second segment is called retail shelf edge products, and that really consists of the channel price tags that you see in a retail store, small promotional tags that we usually call bib tags, small signage around the shelf edge, and then shelf strips. Now, one of the things that I think is really different about Baycomp from many of the other printing companies that I've seen over the years is that it's always been 100% digital. You know, most of the offset companies I go into have digital capabilities, but they've kind of been dragged in as the industry has evolved. We also serve a nationwide marketplace, and we have 3 different facilities. 2 are devoted to shelf edge and 1 to the high security documents. Okay. I am a Chief Strategy Officer, as Barb mentioned, and it sounds like a kind of lofty title, I suppose, but I think, as you'll see, I do many of the things that most of you do. And I think if you're like me and in a somewhat smaller company, we all wear a lot of hats. But one of my responsibilities is market identification. So it's not just looking for new markets, but it's also continually examining the markets that we're currently in. You know, are they still viable? What can we do to make ourselves more viable within those segments? I also develop and execute the marketing plan. I'm very involved in new product and service launches. I oversee business development. I develop partnerships, and we have quite a few within both of our divisions. We don't do everything ourselves. And then along with our COO, I share overall business management. Retail is the larger segment, but then like all of you, hopefully, you know, you have subsegments within that. Our 2 primary ones at the moment would be grocery and drugstores. Now, why might you ask? Well, grocery and drugstores use a higher volume of tags and signage at the shelf edge than any other retail subsegment. To give you just some example, a single retail grocery store might generate $4,500 worth of channel tags a year. And if you put signs on top of that, that's probably another 25%. So, you know, if you do a 100 chain grocery or drugstore, you can do the math. But we also do, as you can see, other retail segments as well.
Now, Larry, I do have a quick question for you. How did you wind up in the retail vertical segment? What were the decision criteria for getting into that segment?
Well, first of all, I wish I could say that, you know, we had a great strategy and we entered that and, you know, just captured the market. But in truth, you know, we had, because we could do data and we could do digital output, we started to have some local retailers who came to us and asked if we could perform some services for them in terms of tags and signs. We saw that it was a pretty good segment for us, and we continued to develop it on a more concerted, thoughtful basis. And that's really how it began. Since that time, you know, we've of course focused all of our equipment and services around that. So just on the equipment and production side, you can see it's all variable data color printing. We have developed proprietary die cutting and laminating equipment that eliminates the need to use a vinyl tag. In other words, we print on paper, then we create the lamination and the perforations and the glue strips that go on it. Kitting and fulfillment is very important. Lots of different elements come together on a store-by-store basis. Everybody in our business works on adhesives. What works on a channel edge does not necessarily work in a cooler. And then, of course, we've developed a lot of special labor features to make those individual labels work better than what we think other people's do. But data is really the core of our business. We do a lot of sophisticated data management, taking feeds from retailers' POS systems. We put everything in digital shelf sequence. When somebody has a sheet of tags, they can walk right down the aisle and every tag will be in the correct sequence. We do a lot of other related services that can cleanse duplicates, map stores, and so forth. More recently, we've developed an in-store publishing system. Even though someone's outsourcing their tags and signs doesn't mean they don't have need for occasionally reprinting a tag in-house or doing an ad hoc tag or sign. And then we can bring in a lot of third-party marketing programs from a data standpoint as well. Nutritional programs such as, you'll see gluten-free or whatever, all the way through wine tasting notes, and that's another new program we just developed.
So really, Larry, once you know that vertical well, it makes it easy to expand within that vertical and adapt and adopt services, then is what you're saying.
That's what you're constantly trying to do. So one of the things we've done more recently is a lot of big box retailers use something they call strips. As opposed to that being an individual channel tag, it's a 4-foot long strip, and it helps people particularly reset a store, or it's good for stores that don't do a lot of constant price changes. So, we've expanded our ability to do that. But yeah, you're just constantly, you have that ability because you're with them all the time and you know their business and you're talking to them to constantly refine your offering.
Great.
So why the retail shelf edge? Well, it's high volumes. I gave you an example, I think, of that before. It's still growing. Kiplinger says it'll grow 3.9% this year, even though we all know retail has some challenges. That's not fantastic double-digit growth. At the same time, it's about double the GDP growth. It's highly data-driven. If you can't do that, you're not a player. That makes significant barriers to entry when you put that together with some of the specialized finishing equipment that we need. Therefore, you have fewer competitors. And you have long-term contracts, which I think all of us like. It would be rare in my business not to have a 3-year contract. Not only do we want it, but the retailers want the surety of that supply. When they don't have tags, they're out of business. So it's just critical that we're sure of each other. Why vertical marketing? Well, Barb's already touched on a lot of this, so I'll just kind of move through it quickly. You most importantly, I think, get that focus that you can devote your resources to it more efficiently. It tends to narrow the competition. A lot of these things we do, you just can't have a digital press and say I'm in the business. It takes a lot more than that. As a result, I think you get better production efficiencies too. We're not always into product changeover, which I see in a lot of commercial printers. We don't have a piece of equipment that can do everything in the world. Ours is very focused. And I think we all know that when you're running something repetitively, day after day, month after month, and year after year, you get better at it. So you do develop production efficiencies. Sometimes we can even start bidding something at a certain price, and as opposed to an escalation in price, we can say that we'll learn to do this even better as we get to know you, and we'll give you a price reduction or hold your price flat. Easier to market, if you just say I'm a heat set web printer or a digital printer or whatever, and you start to think of everything you could possibly put on that piece of equipment, it's pretty broad, it's pretty hard to get focused, and much more difficult than really knowing your segment, which is what we do now. I think you develop stronger Customer partnerships too. There's a good side and a bad side to that. It's hard to lose business, I think, once you get it. If you're performing well, you know, you're kind of sticky. People are very hesitant to give you up. At the same time, of course, it's a little harder to get business sometimes. And then in the end, what we're all looking for is greater profitability, and you certainly get that. And I will conclude with our value proposition. First of all, we do have this deep experience. You know, it's literally decades. So we do play that up to clients. You know, somebody who's just come in, they just don't trust them. We have very innovative data management services that are geared specifically to that retail market. A lot of things that we do, we have actually developed. We've introduced a lot of things to the market. I already mentioned our proprietary die cutting and laminating equipment, and it is very unique, and we think it's superior. I say lightning fast turnarounds, and it's the truth, because virtually everything we do comes in as a digital file in the morning, and within 24 hours it goes out as a printed product. And I know a lot of you do things quickly. These are pretty high volumes and pretty demanding, so it's just not something everyone can do. We do have a lot of creative custom solutions. I mean, as a very quick example, you see a little channel tag on a retail shelf, everything's truncated, or a lot of it's truncated. Well, when somebody prints a sign, they want that truncated copy to be expanded. Well, we found out that a lot of our customers were actually doing this through a very manual process. You know, we developed a programming solution for that will translate that to the untruncated version, the longer version, automatically. And then the last one, again, a lot of people say, you know, they have good service. I've never walked into any printer where they say we do lousy service. But we compete against a real behemoth in the marketplace. And it's not that they're not a good company, they are. But it's people feel about them, in my view, more like you feel about your telephone company or your cable company. Yeah, you know, they deliver the product, they do a decent job. I don't have a real warm, fuzzy feeling about them. Whereas we're very boutique-like, personal. People talk directly to programmers. They like that. They don't enter a big corporate structure where they're in a queue to get programming done. And it really does make a difference, and people relate to it. So on that note, I will turn the program back and look forward to the presentation that I just previewed for you from Chris.
Okay. Well, Chris, what I was going to ask you is to take it away here and share with everybody what you're doing at PCI.
I want to thank you very much for inviting me, Barb, and Larry, very good. Some things are obviously the same. At PCI Group, founded by my father in 1970, family owned and operated still. We started as a data entry service bureau way back when, and heads down data entry, if anybody remembers what that is. Very specialized industry back then, but we've always been a back room for clients, almost like BPO it's called now. In 2008, we relocated down to Fort Mill from Long Island, New York, if everybody knows my accent. We were able to purchase a 93,000 square foot facility on 34 acres. And the reason why we did that is two things. We looked in 2006, 2007. We wanted to, in our world, we had all handshake agreements. Larry talks about long-term contracts, which are phenomenal, but you know, in small family-owned businesses, sometimes you can't get there. So we had a lot of handshake agreements. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to become what I call more bankable, own my own facility. Okay, and in order, it sort of all gets into where we are right now. So up in New York, I was able to own a facility, but tax and utilities makes it a little bit difficult up there. There's a huge difference between the New York and the South. The other thing too is that, you know, we knew we were in a commodity business, so we're in a direct mail business. Okay, that's a commodity business, and at the time we weren't sure way back when where we really were, and we weren't as specialized as we are right now. And that really ties into where we are today. So over the last couple of years, we've changed our facility to being, we were always full digital, so we always had laser printers, but now we're really a white paper factory, printing all over the last couple of years, converted from toner-based to printing on forms, to white paper in, full color variable inkjet, roll to roll, which is better for my world, and I'll explain in a little while, a little more integrity. We had a great opportunity because we're down here and because we specialize in our world so much and because we've spent a ton of money in security and compliance. We had a great opportunity in 2015 to onboard one of the largest healthcare providers in the country to take an implant that they had and to outsource the implant and to bring it into our facility. With that, we picked up about 225 million pieces of mail a year. We were doing about 125 million at the time, so we grew overnight within 3 months to doing about 12 million pieces of mail to roughly 30 to 35 million pieces of mail a month. Currently, right now, we're doing 2.5 billion images and mailing a little over 400 million packages. So that's printing about 1.2 billion B as in boy pieces of paper. And in the facility, what we have now is in our integrity, we track every single piece of paper from printer to the envelope into the mail stream and then track everything in the mail stream. So our focus is on transactional mail, highly regulated, mission critical kind of stuff that if we make a mistake, unfortunately someone's getting sued. We're very heavily involved in debt collection letters, healthcare, financial services. And again, most of the stuff that we do, everybody, I say promise to pay letter, invoices, statements, collection letters. Someone is collecting some kind of debt. Obviously, in the healthcare world, we do a lot of EOBs and all that kind of stuff. But again, everything is highly, highly personalized, highly compliant. If a package goes to the wrong person, there's a breach right away. It just can't happen in our world. Okay. What I always like to say right now that the world is that we're in, the direct mail world, in transactional, it's become very, very expensive. It's very compliant and very technical. Larry alluded this to some of his key thoughts. Every piece of equipment I have in my facility right now is $1 million. So, in order to be in the world, you have to get into that world, and you can't have one piece of equipment. You got to have multiple pieces of equipment. So, a lot of times in our world now, our customers, if they have an implant or they're trying to do it themselves, where before they could do it themselves in a way, now it's become very, very expensive to do that, and you need millions of dollars of investment every year. Why did we pick the transactional market? It's very funny. When you're in a small family-owned business, it's sort of what you fall into. We started, as I said, as a large-scale data entry service bureau, creating large-scale databases for the city and state of New York. We did a couple projects that I highlight here that I sort of always tell people is we did the first AIDS database. Now, of course, nobody knew what AIDS was. It was a very long name, and we even didn't know what was going on. But we got an opportunity to key 6 million blood donor cards for New York City Health and Hospital. Some of those blood donor cards had an asterisk on it. The asterisk meant there was something wrong with the blood. Of course, nobody knew what we were doing at the time. We just keyed name and addresses, basically, but that's what it became. So highly compliant, highly confidential database. We keyed 8 million original birth certificates for people born in Manhattan over a 100-year period. We keyed credit card applications for 6 of the major credit card banks. So if you look in the transactional space, when it was time, the data entry world about 25 years ago was going more offshore, and as it went offshore, your margins were cut down. You got to remain profitable, right? So you still made your same margin, just you went from billing $2 for a product to $1 for a product, so you're basically making half of it, half what you're doing, and it was very, very tough to stay in that business. On Long Island was a very large direct mail center. We were a top 4 regional mailing center, proximity to Manhattan. So we got into the direct mail space, thinking that we're creating all these databases for people, and they'll mail to them. Well, it turns out that the database that we were creating, they weren't really mailing to them, and we stumbled upon collection agencies. And what happened there was 50 mail shops in a 50-mile radius on Long Island. While everybody was doing direct mail or marketing mail, I had an intrinsic data competency that really nobody had. Since we were creating all these large-scale databases, we always like to call ourselves a very technically competent company. We've done business with a lot of different kind of data formats and conversions and handle a lot of data. Well, that was something that nobody else on the island had. So we sort of fell into the collection space, and then we sort of looked at it and said, hey, what I'm doing here is very similar to the data entry world. What I'm printing on a piece of paper is worth more than the piece of paper itself. If I make a mistake here, someone's getting in trouble. At that point, it wasn't so many lawsuits, but you were gonna end up at the front page of the newspaper. Thank God we never ended up at the front page of the newspaper. And that's really how we started to get into the marketplace, and then we started to understand the marketplace, and then we really started to invest in a lot of security and technology around that space, because if my one client needed it, well, the other 110 clients I have needed that same kind of stuff, right? So when you're building a product out, you're not spending money just for one or one process or product. That product can be sold across your customer base. Then what happened over the years, we've transitioned a lot of implants, and what I call an implant is a very large company or a larger company has a division inside that they're doing mail from, and it's not really their core competency and their core business. Now they did it and they started for a reason. A lot of big companies acquired a company that had a little print shop in it, and they sort of just kept it going, and so now fast forward to 2017, when the investments in the industry, in technology or the instrument equipment, again, is millions and millions of dollars. Technology is millions of dollars. IT infrastructure is millions of dollars. Security compliance is millions of dollars. What these companies are doing is saying, hey, in order to leverage the electronic world to go out and go into the email world, what we really want to do is outsource this mail. But they have very strict criteria around it, and they have a lot of security compliance or controls around it. They want to go out to the marketplace, and what they want to do is they want to go out to really one throat to choke, right? So they go look at their marketing partners, and they'll look at it and say, hey, we've been doing business for a long time. I have this product, which is only 20% of their overall volume, because it's usually not as big as the marketing budget, would like to do that. And the marketing partner is saying, that's great, but I don't have all the security and compliance. So we've been partnering up with a lot of the marketing guys in the country to sort of go in there and partner up, a strategic partnership, because our focus or our engine is all about compliance. Now, can I do marketing mail? Sure, I could do marketing mail, but we don't do a lot of inserts. We don't do anything. Everything in my world is compliance. I like to tell our clients that we're an ice cream shop. I sell 150 flavors of vanilla. We do over 400 million pieces of mail. I have 2 window locations on the outer window. It's not important in my world. What's important is make sure that the piece is right inside. What's even better now is with the white paper factory, I can offer a product to somebody it's all one-offs to everybody. So every unique letter in there is totally compliant and totally different than the next. So they can try different stuff and stuff like that. To handle the hypergrowth that we've had over the last couple of years, we've been able to implement lean, which is a key factor in our growth as well. So now we have about 140 standard works or operating processes between print, fold, insert, and mail. So if you think of it, there's not a lot of steps in that place. If you print a piece of paper, you roll in, goes upstairs to the inserting machine, roll into the inserting machine, cut, fold, and out the door. And we have 140 different standard works, which means we're very, very highly compliant. All our procedures, there's a lot of QC around our procedures. There's a lot of process around our procedures, which is what what my customers really want. We operate in a really zero defect environment. So one letter is too many. So one issue is too many. If it goes to the wrong or a sheet of paper gets in another envelope, that's a breach in our world. So even though you're doing 35 million pieces of mail a month, one issue in one envelope is one issue in one envelope too many. So we've been lucky enough in what our new procedures that we put in place in Lean and Standard Works that we've been error-free for almost 2 years now.
Great.
So customer value proposition. So, when clients come to somebody, a real specialized provider like myself, they always think by having an in-house department, they have tons of control. Well, they actually don't have control. Okay, they get more control going to an outhouse. And I would like to say here, it's a shoemaker with holes in his shoes. If they miss a deadline, it's internal department, well, you missed a deadline. If it's miss a deadline for an outsourced company like myself, there's strict penalties around that. So we don't miss deadlines. So when you have a project out there, you have enough equipment to handle the strict SLA control. Okay, there's obviously reduction in equipment investment and maintenance. Now, if you're in the old world, if you have an implant department and you want to take advantage of email, and you think that you can move 25% of the mail out of your facility on hard copy and move it over to electronic, well, yes, you can save postage on 25% of the mail, which is great, and yes, you have stationery on 25% of the mail, which is awesome, but you still have the same technology and you still have the same labor force because you need X amount of people to handle the machines. You still need 2 machines. You still need the security and compliance. So the real way for clients to leverage all the strict electronic savings is really to outsource the piece, okay? You see here you gain in system investment maintenance. You have industry best security and compliance because I have to do it. I'm doing it for over 200 clients right now. Obviously, reduction in headcount. Ability to apply best practices. Well, since you're doing only one thing, we do one thing very, very well. We apply best practices, so we're selling best practice all the time. Just because a client is doing it one way doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. We tell that to clients all the time. So when clients come in, we're able to take their internal procedure as is, you bring it in, then you build best practice around it, right? And what that does is get rid of antiquated procedures. The last thing on the puzzle is documented procedures. How many times you have an internal facility or an internal process that's not documented? Mary Jane might know it, but Mary Jane's gone and she knew her job and she didn't document it. Well, for us, especially with Lean, we have to document everything. So that documentation is available for our clients so that they can see. If a product or an issue does happen, we have strict controls around that, and you have a lot of documentation around it. So to me, I think the vertical benefits of market focus and is Larry said a lot of it. You really know your client's business. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. In the collection space, there's 14 states that are heavily regulated, have their own disclosures and change all the time. So with my clients, if a state disclosure changes in Colorado, we know what's going on there. Now, we don't guarantee to our clients, we're not attorneys, but we know what's going on in Colorado. So if my client's not addressing Colorado, we say, hey, you're not addressing Colorado, what's going on? Or if they're giving us something that's a little different than the rest of the industry is doing, we'll say, hey, you're doing something in Colorado, it's a little different than the rest of the industry is doing. Do you understand what's going on here? So you truly know your client's business. You can really forecast for them or predict their issues before they even know about their issues. Same thing, better understanding of pain points. In your world, as running a company, it's very difficult to justify equipment and technology investments. Well, it's easy because whatever I'm doing, I can sell it to 200 different clients because if one client needs it, all the other clients are going to need it. If they don't need it now, they'll need it in the next couple months to a year. The really specialization or tailoring the solutions it gets to exactly what they need. So we've built an online tool that we call Track PCI. That's really allows our customers to get 95% of all their questions for all the mail going out. We track every piece of mail. That, in the marketing world, our services or our trackability or our integrity is overkill. In the transactional world, it's exactly what they need and exactly what they've all been waiting for. Likewise, you become a subject matter expert for your clients. You basically know their business better than they know the business as it relates to direct mail. I think that's okay. So just shows you our OSA fleet because we're Canon, right? So we've actually converted. We have 2 jet streams right now, complete beasts. We have a color stream. We have another screen product. We have an i300, and we just installed an i300 mica box. The i300 is a cut sheet box, and it's mica. So it's the mica i300. It's the 3rd one in the country right now. If you look at the middle there, again, we're all about compliance. What we say all the time is what we print on the piece of paper is worth much more than the piece of paper itself. Looked at Canon, looked at the inkjet as the wave of the future. We've been looking at inkjet for a long time. With this opportunity, we had an opportunity to jump in the inkjet world. If you're not in the inkjet world, you're trying to figure out, what to do. I got to say, you got to jump in with both feet. It's phenomenal. And then if you just look at print in black on a shell, if you think about not having any shells, your cost of paper goes down, your flexibility goes up. You can offer so many more products to your clients and so many more tailored products to your clients. I think with that, I'm done.
Sorry about that. There are 6 good reasons to target market. And I think what we've got to take a look at is it's really easy to drill down into those features and of your offerings that are most important to your target market. It's easy to communicate with them. You can find those customers, much like Chris highlighted. And when you identify that target market, It's easy to determine where and how you can most effectively market your services. You become proactive. It helps you make better investments and business decisions. So I really want to thank both Larry and Chris for their tremendous insight today relative to how and where they're target marketing. And I will tell you that if you haven't done a good job at vertical target markets, it is time for everybody to take aim. Thanks again to our panelists, and I'll turn it back to you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Barb. And I want to thank Chris and Larry again for providing your insights today on target marketing, and to Barb for moderating and presenting. For more information on today's topics, please visit www.thinkforum.com. And we also hope you join us for our next installment of the Profitable Print webinar series that will take place on April 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for being with us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Have a great day, everyone.